Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. As we head into the final stretch of 2023, we are still seeing that vice grip take place around our listing inventory. But I see an interesting phenomenon taking place right now where I am. Many of the new listings that I see coming on the market right now are from sellers who have to sell their property, meaning there is a specific reason why they need to sell as opposed to wanting to sell. And we're going to get into 3 of those reasons today with my special guest. She is the Senior Vice President and General Sales Manager of Trident Land Transfer. Her name is Sue Gilmore. She's been in the business over 30 years, and we're going to break down death, divorce, and distressed properties today. Sue is going to tell you what to watch out for when listing one of these properties, some best practices and tips to abide by when listing one of these homes, and how to best avoid putting yourself in a difficult situation throughout the process. So let's get right into it with Sue, and we'll pick it up on the other side. It is great to welcome a very good friend of mine onto the podcast this week. I think I would qualify us as going back a long way at this point. She was one of the very first people that I met way back when I was first starting my real estate career in the Bluebell office, and she continues to be a wealth of knowledge and a voice of reason every time I have a title issue that I'm losing my mind over. So she is the Trident Land legend herself, Sue Gilmore. Sue, how is everything in this, shall we say, interesting market that we live in these days?
Well, I can honestly say in 30 years, I don't think I ever remember a market quite like this.
We are going to cover death, divorce, and distressed properties. And the reason for that is that there's not many listings coming onto the market voluntarily these days. And sellers are listing in many cases not because they want to, but because they have to. And many listings that we see coming on the market are fitting into one of these 3 categories, and each presents their own challenges and pitfalls that we're going to get into here. So if it's okay with you, we're going to start off on a positive note and talk first about death. So did I mention it's great to have you on, by the way? Let me start off by asking you, what does a listing agent need to know or find out when listing a property where one or both owners have died, so they can move forward confidently listing the property? Let's start step by step with each scenario, if that's okay.
That is a great way to start. Okay, so a lot of people talk about properties where there is somebody that has passed away as an estate, and that is not really an estate. You don't have an estate until everyone has passed away. Okay, so you might have had 2 people that owned the property, and one of them passes. And I think most of us know that when one of them passes, if they were married to each other, the state has been very kind to those people. They don't have to do up a new deed or anything like that. They just live in the property till they're ready to leave, and then we have a settlement, and they need to produce the death certificate from the one that passed first. Okay. An estate is when the last one goes. Okay. So you end up with someone that is selling the property for the last one that passed. And then your listing is the estate of the last one that passed. The thing as a realtor that you have to worry about is that that person who is selling on behalf of the last one that passed has the right to sell the property. So you need to make sure that, in fact, they are either the executor or the administrator of the estate. And we could go into this in detail, but I won't. The only thing you have to know is, now most people aren't going to hand you the will of the will where it says, I am the executor. Most people don't want you to know their business like that. But there is something that's called a short certificate. And that is the executor, if there is a will, it's an executor. The executor goes to the courthouse, and we've all heard of the register of wills. Well, that's what that is. Okay, you're actually taking the will to the courthouse, handing it to the lady behind the counter, and she registers that will and says, yes, you are the executor. Of course, you got to give some ID, but you are the executor, and they hand you a short certificate which says, you are the executor, you're allowed. You, as a listing agent, you can't be nice. You got to know for a fact that this person really is the executor. Now, if there isn't a will, then someone has to be appointed to sell the house and handle the estate. And that goes through, there's a little more complicated, but you still get a short certificate at the end of that process to say, I am the administrator. I was given the right to sell the property and handle the estate. So I hate to say it, but you can't be nice.
Yeah, and typically we see problems arise as agents on the listing side when you have, let's just say it's a little old couple that lived in this home. They both have since passed and they had 3 children. And all 3 of those children don't seem to see eye to eye, right? And we deal with conflict all the time when it comes to these situations because one may want to list the property for this price and this one wants to do this. But typically there is a designated executor, executrix. By the way, is there a cooler name in real estate than executrix? I think that's like the coolest name ever. But,
we could call him Trixie.
Yeah, right. Or administrator that's going to take control of the situation. So how is it determined if there are 3 children? Again, I guess it's going back to the will, right? How is it going to be determined who the signators are going to be for the estate or the trust? How is that sorted out if there's multiple children?
Okay, so it literally says on a will, it is this person. If this person doesn't want it, then this person takes it, and the people have to sign off. And that is also established on that short certificate. If it's all 3 of them, like my mother, I thought she was out of her mind, but she made all 3 kids executors. Okay. And she was smart. I mean, in the long run, we all got along. That's not always true of every family, for sure. But we all got along. My brother was the oldest. You don't want to shun the oldest boy. You don't want to do that. My sister was the emotional one, and I was kind of the one with the business sense. And so between the 3 of us, we had a whole brain, and we were able to put it all together, settling of the estate together. So it's still back to the short certificate. That's what's going to tell you who needs to sign the listing contract. Really important. Okay. You can't have just one because one's in California. You got to follow the rules. Whoever has been appointed has to sign that listing contract.
And just I'm just going to do a rapid fire couple of questions that we typically see, right? Common things that we go through in these scenarios. So on the agreement of sale, you already said it, but on the agreement of sale, how should the seller's name appear when there's an executor, executrix, or administrator involved?
Okay, great question, because almost everybody gets this wrong. So at the beginning, who is the seller? You got to ask yourself, who's the seller? Those kids or whoever has been appointed, they're not the seller, are they? It's the estate of the person that passed last. That's the name that should be on there. And then when you get to the signing part, then they sign their name, comma, executor, their name, comma, administrator.
And we see that, and we see that all the time. And that's why I wanted to make sure to ask you that question, especially for the younger agents out there that are listening. This is good information that you're going to use at some point in time in your career. So another thing that I want to cover with you is probate. All right. And how that process works when you have a will and when you don't have a will. And then I want to ask a follow-up question. about probate with you once you answer this question.
Okay, so probate is what happens when you go to the Register of Wills. You open it's the money part of the, we're establishing who has the right, and then it's literally going through what needs to be paid to the state for inheritance tax, or maybe if you got a lot of money. I think it's like 6 million and up. You'll have to pay federal estate tax. So that's not a very common thing, but it happens.
That's Sue Gilmore territory.
Sometimes, yes.
So let me ask you this. I want to follow with this. So if I have a listing or an agent has a listing out there, again, not to pick on the elderly, but let's say little old lady lives in a house. You are under contract currently, and she passes.
Oh boy.
Course of a transaction. How should that be handled?
Okay, so this has happened, believe it or not, a lot.
Yeah.
And it puts everybody in a tailspin. And the truth of it is, in my experience, the buyers are usually very patient and kind. Okay. So don't freak out when it happens, but it does need to still go through the process. You will probably, if everybody does what they're supposed to do, get the will, go to the courthouse, the Register of Wills, all that, you can settle in like 2 weeks. So it's not like the end of the world. It might be a really horrible inconvenience for a lot of people. Not that somebody died being an inconvenience, but for the buyer, it could be a horrible inconvenience. But it's just, it can be done, and it can be done quickly.
So let's talk about when there is not a will involved. What happens in those situations?
Okay, if there is not a will, usually the next of kin goes to the courthouse, to the Register of Wills, and petitions to be the administrator. Now, honestly, it doesn't have to be the next of kin, but there is advertisements. Believe it or not, they still use the newspaper to say, hey, this person died. I really want to be the administrator, or I'd like to be the administrator, or I feel obligated to be the, like, it's not fun taking care of somebody's estate. It takes time. And maybe only if you're getting a lot of money, does it feel worth it? It's not fun. So not usually it's the next of kin who loves and cares for the person that wants to be that.
We're going to move on to our next topic now. Another popular topic, divorce. What should an agent think about when they are about to list a property with two sellers that they know are heading for a divorce? How can we advise our clients to best head off trouble at the pass before issues arise later on in the transaction?
Oh boy. Okay, so we have all kinds of divorces. We have people that still love each other that get divorced, which I always found really weird. We have people that hate each other's guts. That's the other end of it. Okay. So first of all, you have to know where they're both at. Do both of them want to sell the house? That is a very direct question that you need to ask to avoid any kind of somebody jumping out and wanting to
murder us.
Pretty much. I was trying to think of a nice way to put that. Okay. So you do need to find out where they're both at. The second thing is you have to kind of know there's very, very big difference between somebody that doesn't like each other and is in the process of a divorce and a divorce. When a divorce decree has happened. So when they just don't like each other and they have put in for a divorce, okay, when we go to settle, we just settle as if they still like each other. It doesn't affect the transaction, okay, because there is no final divorce decree. We 9 times out of 10 make the proceeds to both of them, and then they have to just duke it out how they're going to divide it up. Now, so you might want to ask them how long the divorce has been in the process. So you know if we're going to be in a divorce situation when we get to settlement, or if we're just kind of working through it. So that's one thing. So the one thing you have to know is whether or not they both want to sell, and then where they are in the divorce process. If they hold title, now you would think they would always hold title as tenants by the entirety, which means they're married. Some people don't. So you would want to look at that. You can always get a copy of the deed from Trident, for just so you can see how they hold title, when they took title, all of those things. And the other thing that people don't realize is if they're already divorced and they have a judgment against one of them, say the husband owns a automotive business, okay, and he's not very good at his automotive business, and he's been sued a few times, right? But there's a judgment just against him, okay? If they are tenants by the entirety, in other words, if they're not divorced, they still like each other, everybody that still likes each other, that judgment wouldn't have to be paid at closing. That wouldn't, we could have that a lot, where it's a judgment's only against one of them.
I had that last year, that scenario. Yeah.
And you're like, wow, and they don't have to pay that? No, if they're tenants by the entirety, they're not divorced, they don't have to pay a judgment against just one of them, okay? But the minute they get all the way divorced with that divorce decree, if it's prior to settlement, that judgment has to get paid. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about what happens if you're divorced prior to closing. The other thing that you need to know is that many times, most times, divorces are uncontested. You just want to get away from each other. That's how most of them are, okay? So when you have that, there's something called a property settlement agreement, and that is something that is drawn up, and that you're both usually agree to it, or if the court gets involved, you agree to it, okay? And it literally says, okay, the Benz goes to him and the Porsche goes to her, and this is what happens with this property. And it names the property. It says how much money this, who's supposed to get what, 45%, 35%, whatever. And that's what the title company uses, because once we know there's that property settlement agreement, we do have to follow the law. And we will work on making sure it's what that agreement says. Now, I'll just have to say one more thing about that, though. Say it says 40/60, okay? We are going to get, or a good title company will give you a pretty good estimate of the seller's closing costs as far in advance as we can, because we're not going to be doing them numbers for you, okay? Because you know what's going to happen. After settlement, they're going to come back and say, we did it wrong, okay? So just so you know, that's something else that's going to happen. If they're all the way divorced, there's a property settlement agreement. We're going to hand that, and don't you as an agent get involved either. Let them do it. And then they come to settlement with the numbers, and we do it that way, okay? And they sign off.
I've also had clients that have just deeded properties over from one to another because literally she just wanted completely out. She didn't care. She just deeded the property over before we listed the property. And I dealt with the husband as the sole owner. I've also had situations where we've had to split people up at settlement because it is very contentious. And they are very, very much a situation where you need to be Switzerland. Like you cannot show any bias towards one or another. Don't get yourself in trouble and just stay focused on getting the job done. And like you said, the biggest thing that we often see as agents, or at least I come across, is that if they do not have a property settlement agreement drawn up, that, you know, they're surprised when they get one check at the end and that you can't split it up. And so usually that's where we come into you know, problems. So that's a conversation I always like to have way, way in advance. Usually at the time of listing the property. In our first consultation, we'll sit down and we'll go over all that stuff. So would you agree with that, Sue?
Yeah, so if they are not all the way divorced, we have something, and most title companies do have something called an assignment of proceeds, that we can split the money up if they agree, and they both have to sign the same one saying, or at least the same numbers or percentages saying what they agreed to. We have that prior to settlement. Many times they can't decide. They are so angry that they can't even they don't have any brain cells left. They're so mad. So what happens a lot of times is the whole proceeds goes to an escrow account at an attorney's office. So it'd be Joe Blow, Esquire, for the benefit of the two people. Okay. And they get the whole thing. They can duke it out later. I don't know a title company on the earth that will hold an escrow of the proceeds for a divorce. We will not do it. It will drag on forever. That's not our job. Our job is to get you through settlement, protect your buyer. And I just hate when people leave undecided decisions to settlement. That doesn't happen too much anymore. In 20 years ago, it happened all the time. Oh, we'll wait till settlement. We'll decide at settlement, and then it's so uncomfortable for the buyers, you know, when the sellers are there. But the other great thing is a lot of sellers don't come anymore, so they have to decide this stuff ahead of time, and that has had a lot of benefits to it.
I'm a huge fan of deed packages. I got to tell you, I really, if there's one good thing that came out of the pandemic, is that the deed packages are where it's at. I always try and do the deed packages. It just makes everything easier, in my opinion. So, okay. All right. So I want to get into our third topic today. And that is going to be to cover the unfortunate distressed properties that they're, you know, about to come on the market. They could be foreclosures, short sales. They're distressed. All right. So what can we do as agents to help make our lives easier as agents when listing a potential distressed property? And how can Trident help us to make sure that we have all the facts about the property before we list it? And what are some best practices to come of these types of properties?
So when I think of distressed properties, of course, we think of financial problems. Okay. I kind of also think of people that have let their properties go to pot for lack of
deferred maintenance.
Yeah, deferred maintenance. So you're so diplomatic.
Isn't that diplomatic?
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is because what I'm seeing is not only the financial problems, but properties that could have never sold before. And you know what, I can see your face. You know what I'm saying. Like properties that are 2 feet from the main road, properties that are falling down and have a hole in the roof. Those were properties that you wouldn't even have considered listing because it was just, but those are also the properties that are getting listed and are being sold sometimes for a lot of money, which is just beyond me, that the people are paying for this, but it's part of the market. And I'm sure as a realtor, realtors have got to be saying, you're willing to pay what?
Yeah, it's the craziest thing that, ever since the pandemic that, Ann and I always joke, like, if you're going to have one of these houses, now is the time. Like, if there's ever been a time, now's the time to list that property. I mean, I specifically remember one where I could throw a football onto 309 from like the back window, right? And it sold in like 5 days. And it just is mind boggling to me. Like, I know that's neither here nor there.
I mean, just as a consumer, I just thought I should bring that up because that comes with all kinds of other problems for you all. You have to be smart about the inspections and all of that stuff. But that's not why you invited me here. You invited me here to talk about distressed properties. But it goes to be said for the divorces and the deaths as well. These are the three things that we're seeing come across our desk at the title company. So all three of them come with extra, not only problems for the realtors, but also for the title companies, okay? So a distressed property, what can you do to protect yourself? You can certainly order what we call a mortgage and judgment search. Some of you call it a bring down. I don't even know where the heck that came from. It is not a bring down, okay? A bring down is another whole thing. But anyway, a mortgage and judgment search is where we would go to the courthouse, have a search done for, surprise, mortgages and judgments, okay? So that you know what you are up against going in the door. Are you going to get paid? Is there enough money for you to get paid? Even if it sells way over what you think it might sell for. Are you in the hole? Are they so far in the hole that you will be wasting your time? Okay. So you don't want to waste your time as a realtor. I'm sure somebody out there will, but you want to be smart about how you spend your time. We can also take that mortgage and judgment and walk you through how much money there is. Like you might look at it and go, how do I do this? And so Trident can certainly, your settlement officer can certainly run something for you as an estimate to see if they're too far in the hole.
It harkens back to the really horrible markets that when we actually had a short sale division at Fox and Roach, when we would run M&Js all the time, and they're your friend. If you come across a property, and this is, Sue, out of the three topics that we covered today, this is definitely what I'm seeing the most in my area. Like I have seen a lot of properties come on the market recently that have a ton of that deferred maintenance. It's going to need $200,000 worth of work just to get it kind of where maybe it'll be livable. I've seen some really bad properties recently for whatever reason. And I think that's because these people have to sell or they have recently died and they just didn't take care of a lot of stuff in the house. But that's where I'm seeing a lot of the new inventory be. And I think that's why it's important for us to kind of have this conversation. Running the M&J is a great start. Like you said, you don't want to get mixed up in something where, unfortunately, is there going to be enough money left over for you? Or are you going to have to go through the short sale process? Like, how do you proceed here? And in the past few years, we haven't seen that a whole lot, because there's been so much appreciation in these houses. And so, it's almost like a new topic to cover, even though it's an old topic. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. I've done plenty of settlements in my day where the seller had to bring money to closing to close. Now, I hope everybody understands what a short sale is. It means that you have $100,000, well, you're going to say $300,000 mortgage. Okay. You got a $300,000 mortgage and your house is only worth 260. Okay. So you're going to have to ask the lender if they will take less money so that you can get out from under. Most lenders, it costs them about $100,000 to foreclose on your house. So they are more likely to want to take less, depending on how much less, than foreclose. They don't want your house. They want your money. So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind. And it might hurt them a lot, but they're the ones that lent you the money. They're the ones that did the dumb thing. Okay. Because unless, if I learned anything from the short sale situation, at first I went into it, oh, you people are a bunch of deadbeats. I hate to say that, but that was my attitude. And then as I got into it more and more, there's no judgment. There's all kinds of reasons why somebody might not have been able to pay their property, their mortgage, their taxes, whatever. There's sickness. It just goes on and on. They could have lost their job. They could have been outsourced. There's a million reasons. So we have to go in having kindness, but smarts, wisdom. Yeah. So that's the deal. And Trident is here to help you to determine if it's worth it.
Yeah, and if you are, Sue, like you said, if you are handling one of these properties, there's enough of us that have been around long enough to know how these processes work. It's good to know and lean on somebody who has the knowledge and who has had the experience of doing these things. So if there is a situation where someone is heading towards, a short sale, or they're going to have to short sale their home, there's going to be someone to help you here. And I think that's another great thing about working for Fox and Roach is that people like yourself, there's other people entitled, there's other agents that you can pick their brain on how to proceed with caution when it comes to these kind of things. So do you want to add anything else to that last topic about distressed properties before I go on to the next topic du jour that I want to talk about?
Okay, the only thing that popped into my mind that I thought was really important is during the pandemic, a lot of people had mortgage modifications done. They couldn't work because of the pandemic. You end up having to still pay the piper, okay? So a lot of people took that as that was something that was just done by the government to be nice, okay? That they were, they didn't have to pay all that money back. Well, you know what they did? They tacked it on to the end of your mortgage. So they might not have said, so you don't have to pay for 2 years, but now your new payoff date is 2 years prior, 2 years past where it used to be. So I think some are shocked when they see their mortgage payoffs. And we've seen quite a bit of that. So that's another thing. You might want to order a payoff early. Get your settlement coordinator, get the mortgage payoff information. Just say, could you please order this for me so we see what we're up against here? Because the mortgage and judgment search only tells you the original amount. Okay? It doesn't tell you what they have to pay it off. That's an important thing.
That's a great point. Absolutely. Yep. So I wanted to, and I'm adding on here to our topic of conversation, because while I have you, this is always, always, always good to talk about. And I know we've talked about this ad nauseum when we have lunch and learns and when we have you on, but I want to just re-emphasize to the agents out there, what are some of the advantages of going with an enhanced title policy as opposed to the standard policy? Because our clients often ask that question, and some of us are left flat-footed when we're answering that. Why is it important to have that enhanced policy instead of just the standard policy?
Okay, so the enhanced policy is 10% more just of the premium. So the average upcharge is like $250, $300. Okay, that's very important to know. Okay, why is it important? If you live in the city of Philadelphia or you're purchasing in the city of Philadelphia, I would say the number one reason is it protects you against forgery. What we're seeing in Philly is that it's pretty easy for a crooked person, especially that spots a vacant property or a snowbird property or whatever, a property that doesn't look like anybody's there for a period of time. They forge the deed, they get a crooked notary, and voila, they sell it out from under you. How crazy is that? Okay, so the enhanced policy. Now, I'm not saying it never happens in the burbs, but it's more of a Philly thing. So I would say just for that reason alone is a pretty important thing. And the enhanced policy does cover for that. And we will go to bat for you. We will get you an attorney. We will work through that whole thing. The other thing that it does is it protects against permits that were not issued. So say you have a seller that's a handyman. Okay, you have an owner that's a handyman, and they put in a finished basement. They put in this. They put in a big deck on the property, but they didn't bother to get any permits. Okay. If the township comes back and says, you got to rip all that out, you didn't get a permit, we will go to bat for you, help you to either correct the property to the township specifications or work with the township to make sure we get you where you're legal. Okay, so those are the kind of things. There's actually 21 more protections with the enhanced policy. One is ingress and egress. So you're not going to believe this, but you do not have the right to go on your property with the standard policy, but the enhanced policy protects that. The most important thing about all of it is we're talking legal fees. Okay, so no matter what it is, these 21 extra enhancements actually come with the legal fees. In other words, we will pay the legal fees. So you were talking $250, $300. Okay, so you get a good attorney. What's that? $1,000 for 15 minutes?
20 minutes, yeah.
So that's where the difference is. It will protect you, and we will have attorneys back you up. It's more of a physical thing than a money thing. The standard policy and the enhanced policy does as well, but the standard policy makes sure that all the mortgages are paid off, the taxes are paid, all of that. The enhanced policy does that plus adds to it. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And I just never understood, for the peace of mind that the enhanced policy will bring you to be penny wise and dollar foolish down the line. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, I've seen clients that have gone with the standard because they want to save money, and it's not my call, but I just, I can't believe that they chose to go that route in a lot of cases,
Yeah, it's the best. Trident always sells the enhanced unless you don't want it, because we feel there's two things. We feel like, why wouldn't you want to be offered the best? That's number one. The number two is it protects the agents. Okay. So if we don't tell them, if we don't tell the buyers about the best policy and they come back after settlement with a problem that the enhanced would have fixed, you are going to look like not a very good agent. So that was all our thoughts about that.
Yep, for sure. All right. So I got one last question for you today before I let you go. So you've been to many cool places throughout the world, and I always love hearing about them. So what is the one dream vacation now that you have not taken yet? Where would you like to go for, your Sue could have it anywhere in the world. She can go anywhere she wants. Where are you going?
Greece.
I mean, I'm a fan of Greece. I thought you were going to say something like, I don't know, Patagonia or Antarctica.
Well, okay. So I can die very soon because I have very little on my bucket list.
Well, don't say that, first of all. But yeah, you have been many, many places in this world.
Yes. So. And I will tell you, Patagonia is on my list.
I thought
it's like, but you're talking some mega bucks. I mean, serious mega bucks. If you want to do it right, and you don't want to freeze to death, that wouldn't be my idea of a great vacation. But so I think there's something about that blue water and those white painted buildings that I haven't seen yet. And I want to see that. I would also like to go and do a safari, an African safari, not to shoot things, but to take pictures. And lastly, maybe while I'm there, I'll go to the Seychelles, which is islands that are amazing.
You and I think alike, because I would love to go to the Seychelles or the Maldives. That flight alone is going to take you about 3 days to get there. So for those listening that don't know where the Seychelles are, they are on the eastern side of Africa, in the Indian Ocean, way away from where we are right now. Basically the other side of the world. I have to tell you, as far as Greece goes, I was watching, of course, being a realtor, I was watching HGTV one night, and I think it was like, it's one of those island shows where they go to far-flung places and someone's moving from England to somewhere.
Yep.
There is this spectacular geography. My jaw dropped, and I'm like, where are they? And they were on an island in Greece called Kefalonia. And it is stuck in my mind to this day. You have to look it up. It looks like the coolest place I've ever seen. So anyway, I wanted to thank you for your time today. Thank you for all that great information. Of course, it's always good to see you, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon. But thank you so much, Sue. Always appreciate your time and the knowledge.
I kind of like you too. So it was nice spending time with you.
Well, that's nice. That's nice that you said that. All right. I'll see you in the office. I'll see you back on the ranch. All right.
Okay. Bye.
That was the conversation with Sue Gilmore this week. We thank her for her time. Here are a few takeaways that I had in talking to Sue. Number one, there are certain mechanics when it comes to representing a seller through the course of an estate, a trust, a divorce situation, potentially even a short sale situation. There's new terminology to learn throughout these processes. If you don't know what probate is, or to ask for a short cert or a property settlement agreement or divorce decree, always follow up with your Trident rep. Do not be afraid to ask for help in these situations, because there's a certain way that these things need to be handled in order to get to the finish line without any problem. So always follow up with someone who has the knowledge about these properties. They can help you, but never be afraid to ask when you don't know something. Number two, the best policy with any seller, but in particular these types of homes, whether it be estate sales or short sales or distressed properties, divorce situations, is to get out ahead of any problems that could affect you and your seller in the future. Set that expectation. Make sure to break down the process. Don't let there be any surprises around the bend. Take care of what you can control, and that will lead you to a positive outcome. Problems arise in these types of situations with your sellers when they don't know something that they're going to need and you didn't tell them about it. You don't want to take the blame for something that you can control and you should have told your seller about. So make sure to know the process, know how it works, know how to explain it to your seller, and you're going to be better off for it. Last but not least, I want to give a big shout out to Trident Land Transfer in general. I know through the course of my career, Trident has worked hand in glove with me to resolve issues that have arisen throughout the years. And the best thing that I can say when I'm dealing with a short sale situation, distressed, divorce, estates, trusts, LLCs, you name it, is that they always help me when I don't know something. I can get up from my desk, go to my Trident rep's desk, ask them questions, and that's how you gain knowledge in these situations. And you feel like you have a partner throughout the process. So using a title company like Trident Land Transfer is worth its weight in gold. They're there to help you, and they will go the extra mile to gain your business. So I feel like I'm in great hands with Trident, and I just want to make that known. Well, that's it for the podcast this week. We will be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and as always, if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. And if you haven't liked or subscribed to the podcast or left us a review yet, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.